I'm the one on the left. Well, that was hardly a typical incident of my visit to Pakistan. It's the second largest country in the Commonwealth, and Karachi, its chief city, is a swollen, ugly place with nearly 2 million people. Ancient and modern, camels and Cadillacs are cheek by jowl. It brought to life for me one of Asia's biggest problems: how to adapt a poor and in many ways backward people to the demands of an industrial age. The people still cherish the ancient traditions of the East. The gardens where I found this cobra were built by the British Raj. British rule has come and gone, but snake charming goes on the same. So does the use of camels for irrigation in a land where water is scarce. The camel is blindfolded lest it go on strike if it saw just how little progress it was making. And a few yards from the camel, a giant dam provided a strange contrast in methods of irrigation. Some people lead Western lives. Others are tied by the old customs still. In Karachi, alcohol is legal, but brothels are banned. In Lahore, it's the other way round. Those two women are still in strict Muslim purdah, like most women in Pakistan. But this too is changing, and later we'll show you some pretty faces without their veils. This is Lahore, ancient capital of the Mughal emperors. The mosque is the largest in Islam. The gardens and palaces are memorials to mighty kings. The new buildings are less beautiful but impressively modern, like this police station. In the big cities, I saw a building boom on every side. Karachi's population has quadrupled since the war. It stretches for miles, half Americanized and half primitive. To build Western-style democracy in villages like these has meant a bitter struggle against poverty and illiteracy. The previous regime failed completely. Pakistan is a country split in two halves. This partition gave India's Muslims their own nation, but made government nearly impossible. West Pakistan, with the national capital in Karachi, stole all the limelight. Then in 1958 came revolution. The army took over. Karachi's railway station at night, with its huge electric sign, Pakistan Democracy, was recently the starting point of the first major campaign by President Ayub Khan and his new military regime to restore democracy, but of a new type. President Ayub toured the country by special train, explaining his plans to the people and to the journalists and writers, Pakistan and foreign, who went with him. I was one of them. It was the smartest public relations job I've ever seen, and the most luxurious train, complete with early morning tea served in one's comfortable bunk. As we saw the people acclaim their president, I learned why he had seized power. The government and the civil service had been steeped in corruption and the economy was cracking. So the army dissolved parliament and proclaimed martial law. Now there's a kind of benevolent dictatorship, but with little sign of militarism. The regime has punished the corrupt and is still generally popular. Now Ayub is holding elections for local councils, which he hopes to build up to a presidential system based on indirect suffrage. He believes that this is more suited to Asia than Western-style parliamentary democracy. On the train, I asked him why he and the former president, Mirza, had suspended the regime.
Our people were frustrated. They felt that it was a perfectly good people, good country being ruined, perhaps by the people who were responsible for running the country or the system. Anyhow, they were extremely dissatisfied with all this. So it was a question of saving the future of this country that he declared an emergency and abrogated the constitution. And having done that, then he had to declare martial law, and he called upon me as the head of the army to administer the martial law.
Do you plan to restore democracy in the long run?
Yes, this is exactly what we are doing now. The basic democracy is the first step. We are trying to bring democracy down to the lowest level of the people so that they are associated with administration, associated with future developments. They have a feeling of participation. They learn responsibility and self-respect and cohesion. And later on, we hope that these elected people that be elected during the course of these basic democracies will form the electoral college for the election of the parliament and the president.
Would you like to see other Asian countries following your example?
I wouldn't force my ideas on anybody, but they are most welcome to come and have a look at these things. And if it suits them, we shall be only too pleased to explain. And if they adopt them, maybe that their problems may well be solved in the same fashion. But before this type of democracy can be established, a government has to be strong enough to eradicate a lot of other evils, lots sort of reforms that we have introduced. Without land reforms, without legal reforms, educational reforms, reforms of that nature, you haven't really relieved the people of normal anxieties to be able to think of the future.
How long will it take before martial law ends and democracy is fully at work again?
Yes, well, my own timetable is that if everything goes all right, by the end of 1960, we should have democracy installed in full. And as soon as the legislature or the parliament meets, that be the time to withdraw martial law.
If anyone called you a military dictator, how would you answer?
Well, I'll say he's talking bloody rubbish, that's all. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Somebody did charge me with a military dictator.
How would you describe yourself, sir?
Well, I describe myself as a citizen of Pakistan who feels for this country, also knows the problem of this country. And the problems of this country are that we got to advance under a democratic setup, which we can understand and work. And that is the dictate of the history of the past. That's the lesson of the history, that only those people who have a certain measure of freedom and equality can progress. I'm sure of that, and I think I'm devoted to that cause. So therefore, a lot of these things that I do are really to stimulate people's interest towards that type of thinking, get them to build a team, a whole country as a team.
Ayub does have his critics. If India can keep democracy going, why can't Pakistan, they say? Won't a dictator want to hang on to power for too long? Any military regime is repugnant to liberals, and this intellectual told me he was profoundly disturbed when the army first seized power. But now he admits it's been for the best. Most Pakistanis like Ayub. This week they gave him a confidence vote of 95%. He has banned the corrupt old-style politicians from public life, when in fact the commonest criticism I heard of him was this: a year ago you rid us of the vile political parties. Why are you now saddling us with democracy again? To the poor in their desolate slums, he has brought a new confidence that the government is not automatically out to exploit them. His first achievement was the refugee settlement. 500,000 refugees from India had been living homeless in Karachi since partition. Governments made promises but did nothing. But within 6 months, Ayub built this estate for 75,000 refugees outside Karachi. It's 1 room per family, hardly luxurious, but far better than the hovels they lived in before. Next, Ayub began to break up the big land estates and give the land to the peasants, even though he knew that smaller farms might not yield so much. He aimed to break the power of the big landowners who had bolstered the old regime. New irrigation schemes are going ahead, on the model of this pre-war dam across the Indus. West Pakistan badly needs more water, but the vital headwaters of the Indus are in India. And when India threatened to divert them, a long crisis opened which Ayub has been trying to solve. This isn't mud, it's cement, being mixed at one of the many new factories in Pakistan. Factories like this by using up Pakistan's own raw materials, are helping the economy. Man-hours worked without accident, says this factory notice. There are few trade unions in Pakistan. Even skilled workers earn only a few shillings a day. The emancipation of women is a major task. Ayub realizes you can't build a modern, free society if women still have to spend their lives behind the medieval veils of purdah, never speaking to any men save their closest relatives. Some girls have abandoned the veil, and at Lahore University, I asked students what they thought of purdah.
Well, I personally don't agree with it. I mean, it doesn't make much difference. We go about on the roads, and I mean, if...
Are women getting more and more freedom in Pakistan?
Yes, they are.
And purdah is on the wane?
Yes.
And you like that?
Yes.
Do some of the Islam authorities object to this trend towards the greater emancipation of women?
No. It's just the parents that object to it.
Then I came across the shooting of a Pakistan historical film and got a different view on purdah from the leading lady.
Yes, you know, our Pakistan is very strong in purdah.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't go without parents and brothers, without permission here and there. And we're so strict in purdah in our Pakistan.
Do you believe in women being in purdah, or would you like to see them not ceasing to wear the veil?
No, I believe on purdah.
I asked a Pakistani who's lived in Europe whether in Pakistan she felt at a disadvantage as a woman.
Well, it's a difficult question. One feels more restricted here, I think, only physically, in the sense that, well, transport is more difficult. There are certain times when it's not proper for a woman to walk alone on the street. But perhaps because I've lived in this country all my life, somehow the restrictions don't irk one, you get used to it. And there are certain great advantages in being a woman here, partly because there is this lack of equality. You're treated with much more deference.
Is female emancipation in fact making much progress in Pakistan?
Yes, I should say a great deal.
Can you give any examples?
Well, the number of girls' schools and women's colleges that have increased since partition, or even within the last 5 years, are indicative of this.
What's the attitude of the government to this problem?
I think that they feel that the progress of women is part of the general national progress and should be encouraged. But at the same time, one must go a little slowly because there's a great deal of prejudice and public opinion has to be educated.
My impression is that the young people are mostly in favor of emancipation, while it's the old ones who are conservative, as in so many things in so many countries.
Oh yes, I think so too.
In the Frontier College for Women at Peshawar, we met some of these young people. It's the most traditional and reactionary part of Pakistan in its attitude to purdah. These girls have never been filmed before, and a Muslim might say we had no right to film them. We were the first film unit ever to enter the college, a strict purdah institute. Inside these walls, the girls go unveiled because men are prohibited. There's barbed wire around, and at night armed guards prevent men climbing in. How did we get in? We draw the veil over that one. When they leave the college, they must put on their veils again. Except for the staff, who are more emancipated under their stalwart English headmistress. Pakistanis know that their present revolutionary regime is the biggest gamble in their 12 years of independence. Will it pave the way to a stable and prosperous democracy, or will it create evils as great as those it has driven out?